welcome to my channel. I'm Elena, and in addition to writing, I read a lot. In fact, I've read over 300 books this year, and here are the ones that I think you need to read too. We're starting off strong, and I do mean this literally because these are the biggest books that I have read this year, and that is none other than the Stormlight Archive series by Sanderson. These books are a little bit outside of the normal genre that I read, but I still really liked them, and that was kind of surprising. These kind of books don't really hold my interest all that much, but these ones, something about these ones were different. Can I tell you what's going on in these books? Doubtful. Can I tell you that I like whatever's going on in these books? Absolutely. Kaladin and Syl are my favorite duo of 2024, and I will take no comments on that one. And the world building. The world building in this one it's amazing. I heard that he took 10 years to figure out the world building for this series, and it shows. Apparently there's supposed to be like 10 books, but there are only 5 out right now. I haven't read the 5th one yet. However, I need to, because these books were amazing. I read Oathbreaker, the 3rd one, in 15 hours. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but it's not a book you should read in 15 hours because it is ginormous. They were amazing. I can't recommend these enough, and actually they were recommended to me by a friend in my chemistry class after I tried to get him to read 6 of Crows. He did win because I read more of those. I read more of his books than he did of mine, but it's okay because these were really good. Secondly, we're starting with a book that I did have to kind of jump on a bandwagon to read because everyone else was going crazy about it, so of course I had to read it, and that is none other than Powerless. I actually like this one so much that I bought the 1st one and the 2nd one. I don't have Powerful, but that's because that one was tiny and I heard it was sad. And I don't like reading books that I know will make me sad, however I do it anyway. If you have for some reason not heard a plot summary of this book, Pei lives with her friend Adina in the slums of a kingdom called Ilia, where if you don't have magic powers, then you're pretty much done for. And Pei, in her unending iconness, she accidentally manages to save a prince. How one does that, I do not know. And this prince happens to be the future enforcer of Ilia, and that means that he is in charge of scouting out anyone who does not have magical powers. Pei does not have magical powers. She, in fact, has taught herself with the help of her dad to pretend to be a psychic. And Kai, out of the goodness of his heart and a little bit of desire to see her again, he enlists her in the Purging Trials, which is pretty much a mix of the Hunger Games and Queen Chess roll from Red Queen, where the only goal is to not die and to show off your power in the most ostentatious way possible. Yeah, it will not end for Pei, and we all knew that. I knew that. Still didn't like what happened at the end, because this book is a hardcore member of the final 100 pages plot twist club, and you think you're prepared for it, but you're not. You're really not. It really was a good book though. I liked it because it was, I'm gonna use the term streamlined fantasy, as in there were no parts of this book that felt redundant or unnecessary. The plot was very simple to follow, yet it was very, very engaging, and I didn't see some of the plot twists coming. Now, of course, there are some where I think everyone knows, at least if you read it, everyone knows the plot twist I'm talking about, but there are some that you just instinctively feel are coming. However, this was a very good book, and I'm excited for the 3rd one. One of my favorite new series that I read this year is actually one that I don't see on Book Talk a lot, and that is none other than the Ravenspire novels by C.J. Redwine. They're all fairy tale retellings except for the 3rd one, because I can't figure out if it's supposed to be a fairy retelling or not. There's a good chance I just have no idea what fairy tale it's supposed to be. I actually purchased the 4th one. I liked it so much, and the 1st one is Snow White, the 2nd one is Rumpelstiltskin, and then the 4th one is Cinderella. And they're all really good. They're all technically standalone novels, so you could read them in any order. I read them in the order they were published because they're little cameos from other characters within each book. I think that's really fun because I love the interconnected world. And I love when you can see characters from different books appear in later books by an author, or even like the same settings, because it gives authors so much more chance to flesh out their world a little bit more and go into the details that would be unnecessary in other books. In this one, which is my favorite, Blue and Kellen are childhood friends, and I mean that kind of lightly because they did spend most of their childhood not liking each other because Kellen got into a lot of trouble and Blue got him out of that trouble. Kellen's also a prince. How your childhood best friends with a prince, I do not know. But like I said, this is a Cinderella retelling, so Blue's father dies. And a mysterious woman comes out of the woodwork and takes custody of Blue. And while this is going on, Kellen is, well, since he's a prince, he has to find his queen, and his kingdom has a very strict set of rules for when and how you're supposed to find your queen. And it's pretty much like the Hunger Games, and wherein all of the head families who can compete are very, very openly violent about it. And Kellen does not like this. He's not a fan, but he also knows that there's something else going on underneath the surface, including a magical creature who eats children. And he enlists the help of Blue to help him figure out what's going on, while also pretty much being hunted. It's fun. I really like it. It's another thing like Powerless, where it's very streamlined fantasy, where it's not excessive or redundant in any way. It's not flashy just for the sake of getting like views or likes. It's actually really, really good, and I would recommend it because it's one I don't see here on this platform a lot, and I really, really enjoyed all of her books. She's one of my favorite authors. I didn't even know about her before I started this year, so that's definitely one thing that I really enjoyed. I have another underrated one, and that is Casters and Crowns by Elizabeth Lowham. This one I think is recently published, but it's very, very good. So the princess lives in a land where magic is feared by the majority of people, and there is this duchess who has magic who puts a curse on her, and she has to figure out how to break that curse. But in order to do so, she has to actively seek out the help of someone with magic, and that goes against everything her father has been teaching her. And the person she seeks out who has magic just happens to be a estranged baron, because he has magic and he can't hold a title, but he also has two younger brothers that he has to take care of. And it was a really heartwarming story because all of the characters get right under your skin, and they're just all so lovable and enjoyable. I really like this one, and it's not talked about nearly enough. It's so good. It's very classic fantasy in which all of the elements just work so harmoniously together, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's a solid 5-star read for me. The next one is I Hope This Doesn't Find You by Liang. I hope I'm saying her name right, but it'll be on the bottom of the screen anyway. And this one is a romance book, and I went on a little bit of a romance book kick in my first semester of junior year. And this one was really good. It's academic rivals, and Sadie, she is at the top of her school. She's only rivaled by one other person, Julius, and it's been that way since they were very young. Sadie appears to have her life together on the outside, but we all know that's a lie. And in order to vent all of her anger and frustrations, she writes all of these emails that she doesn't send to people, so she just has a ton of emails in her drafts that vent all of her frustrations, and some of them are a little bit more petty than others. One day, all of them get sent. She has no idea how. However, she can't really dwell on that all that much because now people hate her. And especially Julius, because he was on the receiving end of many of those emails. And they keep getting thrown together and forced to work in situations. And now, of course, it's a romance book, so what do we think happened? But it was really good. I enjoyed it. It didn't fall into the common trap that I see where the guy just never stops being a jerk. I really don't like that. And it's such a common thing, especially on like the book talk side of things, but Julius was not a jerk for the entirety of the book. And when he was a jerk, it was justified, because Sadie had some moments where we were like, no, you shouldn't have done that. And that's another thing, both the characters had moments where you could totally understand why they did things, and you could really empathize with the characters and all of that. And that's something that I don't find a lot, at least me personally, in romance books. I'm kind of like, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just said what I wanted to. But it's a very, very good read. Definitely a 5-star one. This next one is also really popular, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Firstly, this book is just gorgeous, both the cover and underneath the dust jacket. The prose in this book is wonderful. Every single thing that is said on the back of this book is 1000% true. After reading this, I sat down to write, and suddenly it sounded like I knew what I was talking about. My prose was 10 times better after reading this book. It did only last for an hour. However, there's just like a magic in this book. It's really good. If you also have not heard a plot summary of this book, Iris and Roman, they work at the same newspaper station, and they have to compete for articles pretty much. And after Iris's mother dies, she goes to the front lines of the war that's currently happening between like these two immortal beings pretty much. And Roman follows her, as one does. And it's a really beautiful, moving story. And I did cry during it. I did not expect to cry, however, it happened. I don't usually cry during books because lots of times I just can't connect to the characters in a way where I feel physical pain or enough to cry. But it happened with this one, and I liked it so much, in fact, that I have the physical copy of the 2 books in the series. And I just love Rebecca Ross's writing style. It's very moving and poetic. It's flowery without seeming unnecessary. And that's a very hard balance. And I've read a lot where it's too flowery or it's too simple for me, but this one really struggled right in the middle where it was just magic. There was literally magic flowing off these pages, and I think everyone should read it. It's a beautiful book. And the final book for this video is going to have to be Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift. This book is really interesting because, I'm going to get technical for a minute, the magic system is both a hard magic system and a soft magic system. A hard magic system is like in Harry Potter, where there's a very clear set of rules for what magic can do. You point your wand, you say some words, magic. But a soft magic system is more like in Percy Jackson, where the rules of your powers and the limitations that come with them have to be discovered and worked around because they're not a clear set of defined rules that everyone knows. In this book, there are 9 colors of magic, and each color represents something different, like pink is healing magic. And while those rules are known, the amount of power and what someone can do with those different magics is not entirely known. So it's really interesting to go along with the characters as they're discovering what they can do with their magic. So this book centers around 2 royals. They're betrothed to be married, but when they meet, they're also like 8, so they don't have the greatest meeting. So they start sending letters back and forth, pretty much one-upping each other. And they have never met since. And she has an alter ego vigilante identity in her city so that she can protect them and figure out what's going on with an invention that she made using her magic. When they meet for the next time, he doesn't recognize her, so he pretends to be his guard because he's not publicly broadcasting that he's a royal, and she's in her alter ego, so they don't actually know who the other is. So it's a really fun case of mistaken identity because we as the audience know who these characters are, and we know just the sheer irony of the conversations that they're having. And it was really cool because it was full of twists, full of turns, and I loved both of the characters. It's very, very good. Those are all the recommendations that I have. I've read a lot this year, so if you'd like to see any more specific recommendations, maybe based on trope or stuff like that, please do make sure to let me know. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Please subscribe and come back for the next one.